That's insane behavior to me. That is my absolute nightmare.
Ladies, gentlemen, and those with the good sense to do away with the whole notion, I welcome you to the premier audio medium for all your Fazbear entertainment needs. The Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. Note, FFPP is not responsible for any loss of appetite, disinterest, dismemberment, or other legally classified statuses. So strap in and enjoy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast, where I'm your host with the Toast Right Toast, here to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's. Why did I say it like that? What's wrong with me? Anyway, we're gonna get right into the topic today, because we're talking about Tales from the Pizzaplex. We've had a lot of book podcast episodes kind of back to back to back. Sorry if you don't really give a shit about the FNAF books. Unfortunately, I've just read like 17 stories that I've never read before over the past 3 weeks. So like, you know, because as far as like Tales from the Pizzaplex goes, I had read all the epilogues. And I had read most of the latter half of the series, but admittedly, I didn't read a lot of the like stories that either didn't seem relevant or stories that were earlier in the series. I didn't really start reading all of them until like Nexi and that onward. So there's some stories I've never read before that I was like, oh shit, this is wild. And I kind of wanted to talk about that. And so we're just gonna do that. The first one being Under Pressure. No. Under Construction. I combined two of them in my mind. Under Pressure is the Queen song, where is it Queen or David Bowie that goes like like that song? But Under Construction, I'm not the first one to say it's a weird story, right? Where essentially a girl gets trapped in VR and she is living in this world where everyone's getting cancer and giving birth to these weird like fleshy blobs, and then she dies from suffocation under them, but she doesn't die. But as far as like the story itself goes, I think it's super important that it really early on establishes the idea of somebody dying in VR or AR and their consciousness remaining. Because the story is pretty clear that when she's fully suffocated by these weird flesh blobs, she doesn't die, and she wonders if death will ever come for her. And in a later story, we see what is appearing to be this machine filling with smoke and people trying to get her out because it's under construction. Like she wasn't supposed to be there. So it seems like her body is dead from all the smoke and the suffocation of that. That's why she was getting suffocated in game. But then like, what the fuck is happening in the game? Why is her consciousness still around? It's one of those weird things that like, could it be that it just takes a long time for her to die? And that final line of, I wonder if death will ever come for me, is just her agony of like, I'm dying, I'm taking forever to die, this sucks. Or is this the book telling us that sometimes when somebody dies while wearing VR, their consciousness can stay there? Because if they are, that has huge implications for Help Wanted and Help Wanted 2. I don't know. That one I don't have a lot to talk about. I just really wanted to bring that up to see what people thought, you know? Here's another weird thing. I'm reclining because I'm tired. I'm beat. I went to the gym, like actual gym, for the first time yesterday in like a year. So I'm like so sore. And I just recorded 2 other videos. You're getting reclined right today. I am. Oh, I can't do that. My arm, my like right here is like, don't you dare. So we're reclining. I'm sore. I'm tired. I'm beat. It's been a week. So I know y'all are here for FNAF, but I just like, dude, I've said before, I kind of want to get really like yoked, like just jacked to fuck, because I think it'd be so funny, right? I've never been super motivated to like get in a great shape and like work out and like get all buff and stuff. I've never really been motivated to do that because I'm comfortable in my body. I like the way it is. But then I think it was like a TikTok trend where someone was like, do you want to be motivated to work out? Don't motivate so you look good or so you can be strong. Work out so it was like work out because it's really funny to be buff in a job that you don't need to be buff in. And then it was a bunch of examples of people like teaching kindergarten or like being a barista and just being like the original post was like, would you like 1 pump or 2, you know? And that's funny. And people were doing that like as a kindergarten teacher, as like a lawyer. So I think it'd be really funny to be like the FNAF theorist that's just buffed as shit. So like, yeah, fuck it. Let's try anyway. And that's part of the reason why I was doing Ring Fit Adventure for the working streams, and I still will do it. It's just I only want to do it if I can start early enough so I have time, because I need I need every second I can get to make videos. So as long as I start like before 10 a.m. on a working stream, I'll do Ring Fit Adventure just to get like the blood moving, get some cardio in. But I actually like went. My friend got a gym membership, and his gym membership allows him to bring one guest at a time. So me and Amanda are like, yeah, fuck it. We would love to go to the gym. And because he approached us. He's like, do you want to go to the gym with me? And we're like, yeah, fuck it. That sounds great. So yesterday was the first day of, all right, I'll go to the gym. I'll see you later. And we were there for like an hour. Holy shit. You never know how out of shape you're getting until you go for that first workout. And then you feel good for the day. And then the next day, your body's like, hey, you weren't ready for that. You made a big fucking mistake doing that. And you have to have the willpower to be like, it wasn't a mistake. I'll come back in 2 days, I promise. But it wasn't even that intense of a workout. Like, we did the treadmill for 20 minutes, and then I did like 3 sets of 10. I think that's the word. There's set and there's rep. And if I might be using these words incorrectly, so correct me if I'm wrong. But to my knowledge, a rep is like one push, and a set is doing an amount of reps. So I did, or like a set is the like amount of reps before you take a break, I think. So like for the most part, did like 10 reps 3 times. So if I'm understanding these words correctly, I did 3 sets of 10 reps? ? Regardless, I went to like 5 or 6 different machines. I got it to a weight that was like doable but difficult. And I would do 10 reps, take a break, 10 reps. I did that 3 times for like 5 different machines. And it was almost all arms and core. And I was like, let me learn these machines, see where I'm at weight-wise. So when in a couple weeks when I'm more comfortable and familiar, I can just focus like 2 or 3 machines. You know, holy, here, the back of the shoulder, the core, it all hurts. Like, it is so sore. Wasn't like, I'm like, man, maybe I should have stretched better. I don't know what it is, but it's leaving me lethargic today. So all this to say, I'm laying down for today's podcast. I'm talking slower. I'm probably talking a bit quieter. Hopefully it's not too quiet. I'll have to turn it up and post, and the microphone will be a little bit weird if I do that. Whatever. That being said, Five Nights at Freddy's, right? So, pressure is a weird story from Tales from the Pizzaplex. Because it's weird for a few reasons. For one, it's got Fazbear having this attraction at the Pizzaplex where it's like, it's a role play attraction. You know those crazy allegations of kids being killed at our restaurants? You can act it out at the Pizzaplex. That's buck wild. Are you kidding me? Like, at this point, even if Fazbear didn't do it, it really feels like they did. Like, I've never seen somebody gloat about getting away with something so hard since OJ, okay? Like, this is fucking crazy. But that's not even the craziest part of this story, because our main character gets peer pressured into putting on a Springtrap costume. And he's freaked out because he's like, I'm pretty sure these stories are real. I don't want to reenact them. But he puts on the Springtrap costume, and we find out throughout the story, it's not a Springtrap costume. It's a Springtrap Springlock suit that slowly begins killing him over the course of the story because some creepy dude named Earl, who works at the Pizzaplex, swapped it with the real costume, and the real costume he puts on so that he can go like kidnap a kid or something. But our main character, while dying, tackles him and basically kills Earl, I'm pretty sure. Or like leads to Earl's arrest. I don't remember. It's been like a week since I read that story. But like, there's so many questions I have. One, clearly this isn't Springtrap, right? Because his body would have been in there and it would have been way more deteriorated. So is this another Spring Bonnie Springlock suit that has been similarly decayed? Is this a new Springtrap Springlock suit made by Fazbear for some sort of attraction? Did Earl, some fucking guy named Earl, make a Spring Bonnie Springlock suit and then made it look like Springtrap? I have so many questions. Where did this costume come from? I have no idea. And why does some guy named Earl have it? It's one of those stories that I finished reading and I'm like, that's a weird story. And then I thought about it for like 5 seconds. I was like, what led to this story happening? What a crazy set of circumstances. And frankly, I've got no insightful information to give you. I also have no idea what's going on. Like, why does Earl have that? What is it? I don't know. It's crazy. Speaking of just weird, unexplainable shit, animatronic apocalypse. What a weird fucking story. So, again, in case you haven't read these stories, animatronic apocalypse follows a kid who is in a Freddy's fan club at school, and they play a sort of D&D-esque game they call animatronic apocalypse. But throughout the story, the chaperone of this fan club actually gets swapped with the principal because something happened. And over the course of the story, more and more students and teachers are doing fucking wild stuff because the principal is making them do it in a way. And it's not like, do this or I'll hit you. It's like they're doing it willingly because of the principal. He's got some like mental hold on them. And when I say wild stuff, I'm talking about eating dirt, eating beetles, burying yourself except for your face to purify yourself from the animatronics or something. And every time he's like, what's going on? Someone's like, we're getting ready for the animatronic apocalypse. Wink. What? The culmination of this story, he goes to Mr. Renner, the principal's house, and he is sitting at the head of the table wearing a rubber Freddy mask. I'm assuming one of those really shit bootleg knockoff ones. But he's sitting at the head of the table, and all of the like kids from that fan club are at this table being weird as hell. So our character grabs a fire poker from the fireplace and stabs Mr. Renner in the chest. And oil starts coming out of him, which is wild. Everyone starts running. They have a fight. Main character wins. Mr. Renner crumples onto the ground, and a big puddle of oil comes out. Closes the door. Gets the police. Police arrive. Mr. Renner's body, gone. All that's left is a giant puddle of what one of the police officers identify as motor oil. Story ends. Huh? So, there's a couple options here. Mr. Renner, probably not human. The question is, what is Mr. Renner? I've seen 2 explanations, and I think only one of them, to be fair, the less logical one is the more likely one. So the one that has a good amount of logic backed up to it is that whatever Mr. Renner is, he's either possessed by or a manifestation of agony. And all the weird stuff going on is Mr. Renner using his agony to manipulate the people around him. Weird. Why is he doing that? I don't know. But we at least have some sort of evidence in the past that like agony can be used to manipulate people in some way. And agony has been described as this like viscous blackness. So oil being leaking out of like, if you stab something and like a black oil comes out, that could be agony. But the book specifically says a police officer describes it as motor oil. So as logical as that agony explanation is, there's a much more likely option that Mr. Renner was an animatronic. What? So, like, if Mr. Renner was an animatronic, he's an animatronic that's so effective, he just looks like a person and acts exactly like a person. But he's making people do these weird things for seemingly no reason. And then when he's at the peak of his, like, power as an animatronic, he puts on a rubber mask of another animatronic. And then when he loses, he disappears. It's like, that. Why would an animatronic do this? I have no idea. It's so weird. Like, sure, you could be like, why would Funtime Freddy kidnap a girl and then describe the ways he's going to kill her and then kill her? I don't know. But at least Funtime Freddy's built to kidnap people. Who built the Mr. Renner animatronic? And why did the Mr. Renner animatronic take over the minds of everyone at school? It's such a weird story. It's so deeply weird in an almost unsatisfying way. Maybe I just missed something when I was reading. I don't know. I can't think of a single reason why it did this or what it even is, dude. Speaking of weirder stories and like why, I'm sitting up now. Now my back hurts, so I'm sitting up. Frailty's weird because Frailty follows the story of a girl who has a silver locket, a heart-shaped pendant, and she scrapes metal off of it onto hospital patients because she works as a janitor in a hospital, and it makes them get better. So this is just the To Be Beautiful locket, right? The To Be Beautiful locket is a remnant locket that makes someone look that makes a girl look different when her body parts are being replaced by scrap metal until eventually the locket falls off and she's just scrap metal that falls apart. Our main character in Frailty is also just a heap of scrap metal and grease. And when the locket stops working, she just falls apart into a pile of scrap metal and grease. So, is Eleanor back? Did Eleanor give this locket to the girl? Because the girl seems afraid of, the girl seems like she's got weird vibes for dumps. And Eleanor was found at a dump. So some people are like, okay, maybe she also found Eleanor, but she got away from her, but she's still afraid of the place she found Eleanor. Maybe, or she subconsciously knows that she's made out of all this scrap metal walking by an area filled with scrap metal. My main question is why? Right? Like, why does Frailty exist as a story? To Be Beautiful is a good story. It wasn't good enough to be like, we should do that again for no reason. So there's got to be a reason. Part of me wonders if it's just to tell the reader that part of me wonders is it just to tell the reader that Remnant is still a meaningful thing in these stories? Because looking over Tales from the Pizzaplex, there's barely any Remnant or Agony shenanigans at all. There's not a lot of Remnant and Agony. Like, you could argue the Mimic in the story The Mimic gets infused with Agony when Edwin beats him. But other than that, like, there's not a lot of Remnant or Agony. So I wonder if Frailty specifically is so similar to Be Beautiful, a story we know for a fact centers around a remnant heart pendant. Maybe the reason Frailty also follows that pendant and makes sure it's shown to work in a similar way is just Scott and the author's way of being like, hey, Remnant still exists in this universe. And maybe that was just the most clear way of doing that. Genuinely, I don't know. As far as other stories that are worth bringing up, I just kind of want to shout out Cleithrophobia for being probably the scariest story in all of FNAF for me. So Cleithrophobia follows a dude who's going through this like Ballora exercise attraction, I guess. And the idea is that you have to squeeze your way through narrowing tubes to get to the bottom, and you're exercising as you climbing your way down. This is my nightmare. The main character is doing this, and he starts it, and he gets to the first checkpoint, and he's like, man, this is getting kind of tight. I don't know if I can do this. But the only way out, there's no failsafe. The only way out is to finish the course. So he starts going, and on the way to the first checkpoint, by the way, he gets like a little stuck, and Ballora's like, do you need help? And he's like, well, and Ballora grabs him by the foot and like pulls him down to the first checkpoint. It's like, that was kind of uncomfortable. To the second checkpoint, he keeps going. Is he upside down? God, yeah, okay. I had to reread the summary to like remember the details, and I just got like re-freaked out. This story really gets to me. But so he's upside down too. So he gets through the first checkpoint pretty easily. On the way to the second checkpoint, he gets stuck. And Ballora's like, oh, I can help you. Grabs him by the hands. He's climbing down tubes, pulls him down to the second checkpoint. And so he takes a breath. He's on the platform. He doesn't want to get stuck. The only way out is to get down the final third. He doesn't want to become a laughingstock being like, oh, I was stuck and I would wait for the morning and people made fun of me. Hey, buddy, be a laughingstock. This is my nightmare. There's the one final tube. Again, it's straight down. You have to climb your way down to get out of it. He goes head first and climbs his way down. He gets stuck. Ballora comes by, is like, do you need help? And he accidentally makes a noise, to which Ballora grabs him by the hands and begins pulling. Eventually, his hands break. Grabs him by the forearms and begins pulling. Eventually, his shoulders dislocate. And he's just like essentially being tortured, being pulled more and more into this narrower and narrower tube. And because he's upside down, he doesn't pass out because all the blood is at his head. And he's just left there to die slowly and painfully upside down. This is my nightmare. One of my biggest fears are those insane cave spelunkers who they go, look, I love caves. I would love to explore caves that are at least 6 or 7 feet tall. The idea that anyone would be in a cave and would see a hole like this big and go, I bet I can squeeze my whole body in there and start crawling. That's insane behavior to me. That is my absolute nightmare of crawling into something like that and getting stuck. God forbid getting stuck upside down. So the fact that it combined that fear of mine almost with the story of the Enigma of Amigara Fault, which for those of you who don't know, it's by a very famous, incredibly talented horror manga writer, Junji Ito. Full disclosure, I had to go do something for like 15 minutes. I think we were talking about Amigara Fault. I'm pretty sure, but the story was essentially a earthquake happens and a rock shifts, revealing hundreds of holes that are identical to like people. They just look like the silhouettes of people. But people keep flocking to this rock wall because some of these silhouettes look exactly like some people. Like they fit perfectly. And people are fighting the urge, but they're just inexplicably drawn to walking into these silhouettes. And they just walk out of sight. You cannot see where they go. And then I think it's like, and the story is just like it's like a psychological horror of trying to not go in them. And then the story concludes where like a month later, another rock wall is found like miles away. But it's part of the same mountain, I guess just like a mile away then, but it's part of the same mountain, but it's just squiggly lines. Like the earthquake messed up the tunnels, so it's just these weird squiggly lines now. That's the theory. But when they look down it, someone's still walking and they've just been misshapen because they've walked so far. Creepy story. But I think it just, Cleithrophobia perfectly does that, plus just the idea of the horror of doing really tight cave diving. I cannot with that story. It's too much for me. Anyway, I've just talked about the weird Tales from the Pizzaplex stories for like 20 minutes, but we'll just do, let's do questions, I guess. I don't know what else to bring up because like if I talk about anything else, it's going to be a completely another conversation. I'll save the mimic talk for next week, essentially. So let's talk about questions. If you have questions you want to answer on the podcast, feel free to send them in to Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast at gmail.com. That email is in the description to copy and paste because it's a pain to type out. You can also, there's a Q&A function on Spotify. I don't know where it is. It's somewhere on the screen. Our first question comes from Arksy, they, them. Thank you for your question. I don't know if you've covered this or not, or if we got a straight answer from Scott. We haven't. We never do. About the Springlock suit in Sister Location, but I'm wondering what that is. Great question. So we don't have any clear evidence on what it is. The only information we have is that it's a Springlock suit. It's at Freddy's, and Circus Baby says it's an old suit from my pizzeria. And it was used, but not in the way it was intended. Keep in mind, Circus Baby's Pizza World never really opened. So whatever it was never saw the light of day. I've seen a couple different theories on this, right? One of them I actually do like a lot was Dual Process's speculation within their timeline video. So Dual Process made a timeline that's pretty good. I don't like fully agree with some of their points, but they're all evidence backed. Like there's nothing they said that I'm like, oh, that's wrong. You know, like it just, different interpretations of different events. It's really good overall. But in that timeline, they posit the idea of that suit. I'm pretty sure they said could be Golden Freddy, and that Springlock suit was kind of kept and put in the Springlock bunker after the closure of Fredbear's. And that also would give a nice narrative touch that the Springlock suit that Michael put his brother's head inside of is the same one that Michael was put inside of later during Sister Location. I like that a lot, and they had some good evidence for like why that's possible. So you can go watch that. Now I hear you. It's like, okay, but then like, why does its faceplate open like that? They had an explanation for it. But yeah, I like that interpretation. I don't know if I fully agree. I think it's a suit we haven't seen yet, because in the Tales from the Pizzaplex epilogues, we hear about a Jester Springlock suit. I think it's just that, right? If Sister Location and Circus Baby's Pizza World was all circus and clown themed, the idea of a Jester Springlock suit fits right in. And if Circus Baby's Pizza World was being built around the same time Fredbear's was open, I could see them making a Springlock suit for a Jester for somebody to wear, likely William Afton. So I think that does make a lot of sense for the Sister Location Springlock suit to be the Jester Springlock suit from Tales from the Pizzaplex. But because of that, it's something we have yet to see. That's my theory on it. But Arksy, thank you for your question. Our next question comes in from Galactic Dad, him. How did the indie developer, or Fazbear Entertainment, know about certain characters and events that happened in the series, such as Ennard, and if the indie developers' games were the actual games we played IRL, events such as Michael being scooped and the nightmares from FNAF 4? Thank you for your question, Galactic Dad. I think it comes down to, and this is kind of a lame answer, but there's not much we can say otherwise. I think Fazbear knew about it because of cameras. I think just when Fazbear was trying to round up all the technology they had lying around throughout all these locations, they found tapes and security footage of much of these things happening. Because of that, Fazbear knows about it. And as far as how the indie dev knew about it, I think that answer comes from the story Help Wanted in Tales from the Pizzaplex, where essentially Fazbear gaslights a dude into thinking he has this wonderful life as long as he keeps making indie games for Fazbear based off of these accusations. And Fazbear keeps sending this guy information and pictures and tries to scare him in his real life to use it for fuel for these games. So as far as Fazbear, I think Fazbear knows about it from collecting security footage of various locations, and I think the indie dev knows about it because Fazbear told him. I don't see any other explanation for that. Because we know, at least by the time of Sister Locations, cameras are being used, since cameras are being used to watch the FNAF 4 experiments. So likely they were being recorded so William could cross-reference those recordings for experiment notes and things like that. So I think that just makes the most sense. You know, it's a kind of an Occam's razor. The most obvious answer is often the correct one. But thank you for your question. Our next one's kind of a rapid fire. There's 3 different questions, but they're all kind of close to each other in scope, so I thought I could probably knock them all out. They're from Alex, he, they, zer. Thank you for your question. Do you believe that Gregory is the crying child? No. To elaborate, I do understand the striped shirt, short brown hair, young child. I see the similarities here. Do I think it's on purpose from Scott? Yes. Do I think it's because he's the crying child or a robotic recreation of the crying child? No. I think Scott was essentially creating the perfect bait for Glitchtrap. I do think Glitchtrap is trying to recreate William Afton's family in any way possible. So when Glitchtrap and Vanny see Gregory, a kid that pretty well fits the description of the crying child, that's why Gregory is targeted. Gregory's mind is taken over by Glitchtrap, not because he is the crying child or a robotic recreation of the crying child, but because he kind of fits the bill of the crying child and can be the crying child for Glitchtrap once he rewrites his mind. So that's why I think. I think Gregory does fit a description of the crying child, but that's why he was targeted. not necessarily because he is the crying child. I think that just makes the most sense. Next question. Do you believe that Cassie is Charlie and or Cassidy? Again, no. Now, I do think Cassie is, I genuinely think Cassie's going to take on a Vanny-like role for the next games. And I see the Cassidy thing or the Cassie Charlie like doing similar things. I think Cassie is just the son of Jeremy Fitzgerald, the Bonnie bully, and the Help Wanted 2 protagonist. I think that just makes the most sense. I do not think Cassie is like possessed by Charlie or Cassie or Cassidy or is the same character or a recreation. I think it's just a new character fitting the same role they used to of I am going to try my best to help. And then our final question from Alex, what do you believe happened to Charlie after Ruin? So I think you meant to say Cassie here. If not, real quick, I don't think anything necessarily happened to Charlie after Ruin because I don't think Charlie was in Ruin. I don't think Charlie was involved with Ruin. As far as like Cassie, I think it's interesting that all three endings of Ruin end with Cassie still in the underground area with the Mimic. There's no ending where Cassie escapes. Cassie is either dead, which would kind of suck. I think that would be a really rough ending. Or I'm kind of thinking the Brazil ending is canon, where Cassie puts on the mask and fully accepts whatever Glitchtrap is trying to do to her and hopefully is spared by the Mimic because of it. Because I think it's really compelling if the next villain of FNAF is Cassie playing the role of Vanny, being taken over by Glitchtrap, possibly working with the Mimic, and that's who we have to overcome. I think that's dope as hell, and I think that makes the most sense for her character, and for what happens at the end of Ruin. Do I have any evidence saying that this is gonna happen? Not really. But I think it's a compelling interpretation of events. But Alex, thank you for your question. And finally, we have a question from Springtime Bonnie, they, them, and this kind of goes into what I was talking about earlier, so that's why I picked it. Do you believe that Luca and his Springtrap costume were used by the Mimic to become Burntrap after Fazbear Entertainment found and got rid of his body and the roleplay auditorium? So thank you for your question. I've seen this around. So again, in Pressure, Luca puts on a Spring Bonnie costume that is a real Springlock suit and dies in it. After that story, the roleplay auditorium is scrapped, and presumably so is Luca's body. So the thinking is, if Luca's body in a Springtrap Springlock suit was scrapped and probably thrown into the sewers, did Vanny or Glitchtrap retrieve that and use it to turn it into Burntrap? No. Okay, I shouldn't definitively say that. I don't think so. You could argue that that is a valid argument. I think that is a wild and unsatisfying beginning for Burntrap as a character. Like, regardless of who you think Burntrap is, the Mimic, William Afton's corpse, something else, any of those options, any of those options is more compelling and satisfying than a random kid who died in a story being reused in a fake costume. Like, the Mimic at least has ties deeper into the franchise. William's corpse, obviously satisfying because it's the remains of the main villain of the earlier games. And then there are satisfying explanations for it being someone else. I don't think Luca is a satisfying explanation for it. I think it would need to be more emphasized, and it would need to be clear this is more important than some, admittedly, protagonist that doesn't affect that much outside of his own story. I just don't see it. Again, it is valid to think that Burntrap is the aftermath of Pressure after Vanny experiments on it or something like that. But I don't think it's narratively satisfying, and I don't think it's likely. That's my take. But regardless, thank you for your question. Again, another bit of a shorter episode, but like I said, I'm tired, I'm beat, whatever. I think we crossed a half hour. I hope we did. It'd be really funny if this week's main video is longer than the podcast. I don't think it will be, though. But thank you for your questions. Again, if you want your questions answered on the podcast, send them to Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast at gmail.com. It's in the description to copy and paste. It's a pain to type, or you can do the Q&A feature on Spotify. But until next time, thank you for watching the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast, where the pizza abilities are endless. We hope to enjoy your future patronage. Bye-bye for now.